We're here with Sandy Womble at the Winter Park Public Library one day after the debate.
Yes.
Yesterday on March 6th. And Election Day is this coming Tuesday.
Correct.
March 11th. And I know that our readers are interested in learning more about you. And so I've got some questions for you. And so please feel free to add whatever you need to.
Okay.
Okay. My first question to you is, what is your vision for our city, for Winter Park, and why are you running for city commissioner?
Good question. My vision is everyone's vision. I feel like we all share the same goals here, that we just, sometimes we tend to focus on our differences. And so my vision is to bring us together and not focus on our differences, but what we have together, what our assets are, our historic properties, our tree canopy. And that's my vision, to try to bring more peace to the City Commission. I've heard over and over that the mayor and two commissioners are saying we work well together. Well, that's true, you do, but we are a city of 28,000 people. We need to all be public participants. So that's my vision, that we need more public participation, and we need to move forward with development, but we also need to respect our historic architecture, our tree canopy, our parks, and
okay. And you're running for commissioner, so obviously you feel that if you're sitting on the dais instead of your opponent, Sarah Sprinkle, something would be different on the commission if that were to take place. How do you see that governing dynamic changing if you were to sit on the dais instead of Commissioner Sprinkle?
Well, I think the very first thing that's different about the two of us is I'm a lot more independent than she is. I'm an independent vote. I think the difference would be I'm an independent vote for that commission. Right now we have a situation where there's 5 votes, and 3 of them, which include my opponent, Commissioner Sprinkle, vote together on the key issues. They vote a lot. There are many times that they all 5 vote together, but on very key issues, 3 of them vote together, giving them a majority. And a good example is when they amended the Urban Forestry Management Plan, and those 3 key votes decided to remove the city's services of the trees in the right-of-way. That's one example. There are many. And I think that I would be a lot more independent in that regard. And I think that one other thing that I take to the dais is that I personally like all 4 of them. And I know them all personally. And I just would not be so quick to take sides. And I feel like that's a very important thing.
What is the single most important issue in Winter Park today, as you see it?
I think development and concurrency and keeping up with our comprehensive plan. I think 1792, the development along 1792, there were many people that got up before the commission, and a lot smarter than me and more professional than I am, who requested that they bring forward a visioning plan for a master plan for 1792, and that was ignored. Concurrency, traffic studies to decide, you know, is this a good thing for our city? As I said yesterday in one of the debates, I don't remember which one, I think there were over 800 water permits pulled in the city last year. I don't have the exact number, but you know, we have an aquifer that's drying up. We need to take things like this into consideration.
So if you're elected, how are you going to lead on that issue in particular? What can a commissioner do?
Well, a commissioner, the first thing they can do is follow our building codes and go by our comprehensive plan. That was established by a set of professionals, volunteers, professionals, and residents of the Winter Park. And I think that's something important that we need to always respect and use it as our Bible instead of constantly making changes to the comprehensive plan to accommodate a development.
Okay. Why do you think current city residents moved to Winter Park in the first place?
Probably the same reason I did over 20 years ago. Trees and houses and the ambiance of this city is so charming. And that's something we really need to protect. We're not a subdivision USA. We are a unique, historic town, and we need to respect it, protect it, and always be mindful of that.
Now, you've said that development is an important issue facing the city, so there are changes coming to the city. Do you think that the residents of the current residents of the city of Winter Park are, as a whole, going to be embracing that change? What is your sense of the feeling out among city residents for development issues?
I think the one thing I've found from going door to door and talking to people, which I've really enjoyed doing, I think it is a concern with them. And I think, like me, I watch as our quality of life is reduced by more traffic, more noise pollution, more big box buildings up over on, Denning. They're turning, Denning, the proposal for Denning is to turn it into an urban density corridor. And that is our road. That's the road we use to cut through and avoid 1792. So these are things that, as a resident, have been concerning to me.
Now, I think you've mentioned, and I know others in the city have mentioned, that we've always been a city of homes,
yes,
using the phrase city of homes, and should largely stay that way. It's called by some people a bedroom community to a larger city that you're connected to. But there are others here in the city who support significantly expanding the commercial sector, and they claim that commercial expansion is a net benefit to city residents because they're going to be sharing in increased jobs and profits of business that comes in, and because businesses, and I've heard this a lot at City Hall, the businesses will pay more city taxes and city residents will pay less, a shift of the tax burden primarily. Do you see it that way?
My taxes haven't gone down, and I've watched that for 10 years. I've listened to that argument for 10 years. You have to look at it like this. Our property taxes, only a fractional amount of our property taxes come back to the city. And of that payment back to the city, we have 2 debt services that we're paying on top of, that were taken from our property taxes. So I think that is an important argument, but it doesn't always hold to be, it's not always, what's the word? It's relative. And at some point, I'm an economics major, and I told this to the people, a group of neighbors the other day, you have to be careful of the law of diminishing returns, where you build so much and you overuse your properties that the net value starts to decrease and that you have diminishing returns. So that's something I think we need to be very mindful of.
If you were to put yourself in the position of those who are advocating the benefits of commercial development, do you have any sense of how, especially with your background, how that development in terms of benefit to citizens can be quantified? How many jobs do you have the sense that the current development in the northwest part of the city might bring to Winter Parkers, and what kinds of jobs are they? And also, when business revenues are increased, what is the mechanism, if any, for spreading that wealth to city residents, if there is one?
Well, we can't deny that there will be an economic impact with all this new development and all the new businesses that they bring in. So that will be a plus. But then you have to look at all the city services. I mean, you just need to weigh it. I'm not saying it's a negative at all, because I don't think that. I think it is a positive, but you just have to weigh and balance that kind of growth. There will be a lot of new jobs. There's already, at the CNL site, there's already new jobs, and there will be new residents.
Okay. Focusing just on Northwest,
Okay.
Winter Park and the development in the 1792 and Denning corridors for a moment. Do you have any sense, or have you read any projections of how much the average Winter Parker might save in city taxes when this new development, recently completed and now under construction, comes online along Denning in 1792? Do you have any sense of what that might represent in terms of net tax savings for city residents?
Yes. No. I'm sorry. No.
you really don't have any sense
I have
of what?
No sense.
Okay.
What that is. I have not read anything.
Okay. Well, another topic of conversation in that part of Winter Park is the proposed punch-through of Lee Road to Denning, which seems to be connected to the new development that's going in there by a company called Up Development. What's your feeling about the benefits and liabilities of a punch-through like that? Do you, for instance, do you believe that it will have the tendency to push traffic toward Park Avenue and into our neighborhoods east of Denning?
I think it does have it will have a tendency to push traffic, cut through traffic through our neighborhoods. Yes, I'm not in favor of that. The other thing that I noticed, if they do make that a four-way intersection with stoplight, the northbound lane on 1792, when you turn off of Webster, just that northbound right lane has always been perpetually open. I see that as becoming a big traffic nightmare, because now people will not be able to perpetually go through the northbound right lane, and it will.
So you see a backup there where there isn't one now?
In fact, I've already noticed on Webster, it's creeping along, it's getting denser and denser along Webster, so I just cannot even imagine having a stoplight at that perpetual northbound line.
Well, and talking about traffic, to pick a number and to get a sense of your values here, if punch-through traffic increases Park Avenue and nearby downtown business revenues by, for instance, 10%, just to pick a number, and while increasing cut-through traffic by 10% in our neighborhoods, is that an acceptable trade-off?
That's a great question. I don't know. I just don't know.
Do you think that the higher density building boom and all the cars and the people that come with it have the potential for gridlock in the city beyond the intersection you referred to, but maybe in a broader area?
Yeah.
How important is gridlock to you as an issue?
I think traffic is the #1 issue, really. I mean, we have not done a traffic study since 2011, and that was before my opponent took office. I think we need to constantly be vigilant about this, because we are quickly becoming, 1792 is going to be a parking lot. And we just need to be vigilant about this and think about this and be mindful of it as we grow.
One thing that people in larger cities, especially those with lots of cars and congestion, like Atlanta, Los Angeles, they have city residents who have gotten more accustomed to sitting in traffic and waiting in lines, whether they're waiting in lines to go through a red light or waiting in lines at the DMV. It's something I think that many of them see as part of their lives. And you could say that they have accommodated to that, or maybe they haven't. Winter Park is not Atlanta or Los Angeles. If that is our future, waiting longer in your cars, in lines for restaurants, how do you think Winter Parkers will respond to that? And is it possible that that will change views of city residents regarding future development?
I think it's unacceptable. I think that we, again, need to be very watchful of that.
Speaking of cars, it seems that construction of parking garages is a regular topic of conversation at City Hall. Who are these parking garages for? Who are they being planned for, literally? Whose
Well,
cars,
for the
would you say?
development,
Yes, but I mean, who's going to be parking in those garages as far as you're concerned? Would it be city residents primarily?
No. These are for the development that goes with them. No.
So you would say that parking garages are being built for people from all over the city to come visit Winter Park? Is that?
No. Well, I guess I don't understand that question.
Well, I'm just wondering if parking garages are built.
For visitors?
The question is, if parking garages are built, whose cars will be parking in those garages?
Well,
are they primarily for city residents?
No, they're private, and they're driven by the development.
Okay. Why do Winter Park residents need a minor league baseball stadium, if they do?
This is an interesting question because I've watched this for over 10 years. The residents aren't driving this, and this is what I don't like about it. If the residents had come forward and said, we want a minor league baseball team, I would be happy with that. I think it does have positive things, but I'd like to see a public referendum for the minor league baseball to see if we want that. And if the residents say yes, do a survey. If they say yes, then okay, let's move forward. But I've watched this. I've watched advisory boards being lobbied to accept it, and I don't like that kind of policy.
What is your understanding of the prime benefit that the mayor and others who have talked about the stadium? What's your understanding of what those benefits are to the city?
Good question.
And how do you view those?
Okay, there are two benefits they argue. One is an economic impact, and that this minor league baseball is an economic catalyst for the area around it. That's why I've always thought the best place for it to go is Ravidage, not Martin Luther King Park. So there is an economic catalyst benefit, I guess, if you will. And then the other thing is, of course it provides amenities to the people that live here that like minor league baseball. That's a good thing.
All right. You mentioned Martin Luther King Park. I'd like you to sort of expand on your feeling about that park and answer the question, why Winter Park residents need parks? What is the benefit of parks for Winter Park?
Well, parks are wonderful for everyone. They provide us a place to play sports and nourish our souls. I mean, it's also a community catalyst. I mean, how many parks have we all been to in our life where we've met our friends and just enjoyed the day? So our parks are significant. I don't support minor league baseball in Martin Luther King Park because I think that's our park first, and it shouldn't be set aside for a private enterprise, which would be the minor league baseball team.
You mentioned Ravidage and the baseball stadium location possibly being best in Ravidage. It's my understanding that City Hall officials are seeing the location of a stadium in a place that is not now a park, like Ravidage or the Votex site, as a way to get a twofer. Basically, you get a stadium and you get parkland. Do you accept that a stadium, a minor league baseball stadium, is the equivalent of parkland for the city of Winter Park?
That's a dicey question. I mean, if it becomes a minor league baseball stadium, yes, I guess that would be parkland, but it would be still controlled by a private enterprise. It's like the downtown arena. That's not more community. Well, I guess that is. If it was at Ravadage, I could see that as a park expansion. I would see it as a park expansion.
Let's move on to trees.
Oh, my favorite subject. Can I say one more
Sure.
thing about the minor league baseball? What I learned about it, and I think everybody needs to know the entire story so that they can come to a good conclusion, but the first thing that was told to me by staff when I asked them about it is this minor league team went to Orlando, they turned them down. They went to UCF, they turned them down. They went to the Orange County Public Schools to possibly get the Hungerford land over there on the other side of I-4, which I think would be a great place. They turned them down. So now they're here at the City of Winter Park, and we haven't turned them down. In fact, it's become, in my mind, they're saying that they're still studying it, but just watching them and watching the reactions, it seems like almost a done deal. And I don't accept that.
I've heard it said by city officials that city money, ultimately money that belongs to the residents, will not be used to finance minor league baseball. On the other hand, when I look at the financing proposals, it appears to me that there is a multi-million-dollar shortfall.
Absolutely.
And it appears that the only way that I can see, that I understand that the city can deal with that is through some mechanism like floating bonds to finance that. And yet I hear from Sarah Sprinkle that the city will not bond. And I'm wondering what your understanding of that issue is and your point of view regarding how this would get paid for if for some reason the city decides it's right for our residents.
I don't see how they could not float bonds. They've already put a property up for sale in the CRA district to help pay for this. And they can also take money out of the park acquisition fund to fund it. So I'm not so sure that 1 + 1 = 1. I think they've got to find a funding source. And yes, they could probably get grant money here and there. But there is a huge shortfall now. We have a $4 million commitment from the team, $2 million from the team owner, $2 million from Rollins, and it will cost anywhere between 25 and 35 million. So say the high end of that, we're still 31 million short. I don't believe in exposing ourselves to that kind of liability, especially for a minor league baseball. You get no return on your investment. Team owner does, and the shops around it will, but whoever funds it gets no return on that. So these are just things, to me, they're common sense, or they're financial. They just don't make common sense. Don't make financial common sense.
All right, let's move on to another issue that Winter Parkers have been concerned about, and that is undergrounding of our power lines. We cover a number of city meetings every month, and we've heard talk inside City Hall that the undergrounding of Winter Park's power lines could be accelerated, accomplished in 10 years or less, at little or no net additional cost to the city, if you take into account reduced and eliminated tree maintenance costs and other factors. But there's a question of whether the majority of commissioners will support that timetable. Do you support a 10-year undergrounding plan?
I don't know enough about that. That's the first time I've heard that, so I can't really answer that question.
Would you consider using the city's bonding power to achieve undergrounding even faster?
Well, I'd much prefer using, you just brought up another good point. I think what I've told people is looking at the baseball, minor league baseball, and bonding $30 million for that event. you also have to think about the opportunity costs of bonding for baseball. Where could you use that money better? And actually, I think undergrounding our utility would be a much smarter choice.
Moving on to preservation, historic preservation. Is the preservation of Winter Park's historic homes and neighborhoods important
Very.
to you, and why?
Well, you know, again, looking at it from a financial perspective, these are our assets. You know, if we had a bank account with different stocks and bonds, our historic properties would be one of the entities, one of the assets in that bank account, just like our trees. I mean, these are important assets to our city, and we need to be mindful of this and protect them. Do you see the city as having any obligation to promote and preserve the historic neighborhood west of New York Avenue? I think that would be, to me, that is a no-brainer, yes. I mean, I think parts of that should be preserved and restored for the future. It's a very significant part of Winter Park's history, the other side of the railroad tracks. And yeah, I do believe in that.
Are there any particular mechanisms that you're aware of that you think could be effective in
on the
achieving
west
that goal?
side?
Yes.
Well, one thing that I would like to, one of my goals as a commissioner would be to try to get the city accredited with our CLG, the state certified local government. We cannot right now qualify for that because of people on our boards, non-residents on our Historic Preservation Advisory Board. And that would be one of my first priorities, to get the city accredited, CLG accredited, so that we can go after grant money and go after state funding to help us move forward in historic preservation.
City officials often note with pride, I've heard it said a number of times in the last year, the 100% occupancy rate, or near 100% on Park Avenue. Does the city have an obligation to promote prosperity among Park Avenue merchants and their landlords?
Well,
what's the city's role in that?
It's a real fine line. I mean, you know, it's a free market out there, and, you know, I'll be the first one to say we can't go out there and try to control rent. Or do they have, I think it's our responsibility to help them and be good partners with them. Can we do anything to help them as far as lower their rent? No. Can we pick and choose what stores we have? No. That's, you know, we don't have that power.
So when Park Avenue prospers, as it does now, who wins? Can you briefly break down who wins, how that works? What is the benefit?
Well,
does
it
it go
benefits
beyond
all of us. Yeah, I mean, that definitely has a ripple effect all through our city, and as they prosper, you know, we all prosper. But I think one thing I've heard quite often is that the city commission gets full credit for the occupancy rate on Park Avenue, and that's not true at all.
Now, what you said is when they prosper, we all prosper. And
yes,
what I'm trying to do is to get an idea as to how that actually plays out. When you say we all prosper, does the person who owns a home over near Palmer, for instance, and works in downtown Orlando, an attorney, for instance, how does that ripple out to Winter Park?
Well, the only way it probably ripples out to a city resident is as long as they're thriving, our property values are stable, if not rising. That's what I was talking about. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, the attorney that lives on Palmer Avenue is going to go downtown every day to go shopping, but, you know, it does keep our our economy stable.
Both you and your opponent, and undoubtedly thousands of candidates across the nation, have pledged that you do not support tax increases. Is there anything you think Winter Parkers would willingly pay more taxes for?
I don't know. I know that, no, I don't know, maybe park space. I have a great idea for park space that I've still not divulged to anyone during this whole campaign. Can I tell you this now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Actually, it's a friend's idea. As people know, I've hung the Christmas balls, and I freely admit that I copied that from my hometown. I'm now copying this idea from a friend. I believe it's St. Simons, Georgia. They have a beautiful town with great parks. They have a program on their main street when you go into a restaurant, you can round off your bill, and that money goes into the city's park acquisition trust fund. They have flyers on the table, and it's not a tax because it's voluntary. You know, and companies around the nation are doing this now. My phone service asks me that every month. When you go to Fresh Market, they ask you if you want to round off your bill. So I think we should take advantage of that and capitalize on that here in our city, downtown, and maybe start a program where we can capture some of those tourism dollars, not through tax, but on a volunteer basis, and build up our park acquisition fund.
The election is only a few days away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether there are any other public events that you'll be attending between now and then, but this would be a time for you to add anything that you want to say to Winter Park residents here in closing.
Okay. As I said to you earlier, one of the first reasons I'm running for the City Commission is not only because I love our town, but I think it's time that we all realize we have so many similarities. We all are just so close in our beliefs. And I think it's time we just quit focusing on our differences and sit down together and talk and shake hands and be friends. That's very important to me.
Sandy Womble, thank you very much.
Thank you.